The Truth, LibertyRadioLive.com.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress. I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to continue where we left off in the book Codeword Barbelon, 666, Danger in the Vatican, the Sons of Loyola and Their Plans for World Domination by P.D. Stuart. An indispensable book if you wish to educate yourself about the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order. I highly recommend this book. I wish it was on the coffee table of every American home. I wish it were discussed in every venue, but we'll do our best to share this education with the listeners. Continuing our discussion about Skull and Bones, the secret society, the Jesuit-controlled secret society that boasted memberships of the Bush family. Big Bush family memberships. It's become a tradition in the Bush family and explains much of what took place during the Bush administration. And we need to know that when we elect as president members of these secret societies, we're voting in Jesuit shills. And that's exactly what George W. Bush was, and that's just exactly what George H.W. Bush was. Now, we're continuing here where we left off Wednesday. It says, the renowned and legendary Kabbalist, Plato, revealed even more about the objectives of these secret societies. Quote, to assist in keeping up the deception, we will form secret societies and clubs, and so by fair means or by foul, we shall gain our ends and carry on our dishonest proceedings with impunity, unquote. Now, I'd just like to add that it sounds Jesuitical, doesn't it? Dishonest proceedings, dishonest aims, by fair or by foul, we will keep up these deceptions through our secret societies, and through them we will gain our ends. In other words, the ends justify the means. That's the motto of the Jesuit order. And Plato, according to this author, P.D. Stuart, was a Kabbalist. And that describes the Jesuit order as well. And it says, you see, the oath taken by Bush and members of the Illuminati requires the initiates to disregard all bonds of allegiance, whether to father, mother, brothers, sisters, relations, friends, or to the king, magistrates, or country, and any other authority to which loyalty, obedience, or service may have been sworn. Instead, the initiates must swear faithfulness and everlasting obedience to their superiors and their order, and must reveal to their chiefs whatever they may have seen or done, read or heard, learned or surmised, and to, quote, gain financial and social power and to place them at the disposal of the group, unquote. I wonder what they would do to their loyalties to God after taking an oath of allegiance to these secret societies. If they ever had any love at all for God, where would it rank in importance after taking an oath to these secret societies, where they swear bloody oaths that they be brutally tortured and mutilated should they ever disclose the secrets of their order. This is why God told us in His commandments not to swear oaths. And he continues, he said, it is little wonder that President Ulysses S. Grant warned Americans, quote, all secret, oath-bound political parties are dangerous to any nation, no matter how pure or how patriotic the motives and principles which first bring them together, unquote. Do you suppose just maybe President Ulysses S. Grant was a Bible-believing Christian and understood the horror that can result when one of God's people takes one of these diabolical, bloody oaths? They're under Satan's control. They've directly and purposely violated God's law. And they can be used of Satan. And that's what all secret societies are. He says, thus we have good cause to fear the Jesuits and their Illuminized acolytes, bonesmen, Rhodes Scholars, Phi Beta Kappa, Freemasons, all secret societies whose sole aim is to place men in high office as advisors to presidents, congressmen, senators, White House aides, Supreme Court judges, and of presidents to further their secret oath-bound purposes. As Bill Cooper warned, quote, according to the oath Bush took when he was initiated into Skull and Bones, his oath of office as President of the United States means nothing, unquote. And I believe Bill Cooper knew exactly what he was talking about, and so does this author. Their oath that they swear when they take office, when they take the presidential chair in the White House, means absolutely nothing. He says, and so we're not surprised when respected law professor Judge Andrew P. Napolitano tells us in his book, Constitutional Chaos, that there is a pernicious and ever-expanding pattern of government abuse in America, that the machinery of the government are inexorably grinding away at the individual liberties guaranteed by the Constitution, and that the government is using the war on terror as an excuse to sidestep the Constitution, often arresting without warrant, spying without legal authority, imprisoning without charge, and killing without cause, unquote. Now, before you begin to think of law professor and judge and author Andrew P. Napolitano as someone who can be trusted, I want to tell you something. He's an Italian Roman Catholic. He's a judicial commentator on Night of St. Gregory, Rupert Murdoch's Fox News. He's written a book called Constitutional Chaos that for all outward appearances looks to be a truly patriotic document, a truly patriotic publication, this book. But he serves the Pope in Rome. And he serves in the Pope's legal system, his judiciary system. How much could we rely, even upon Andrew P. Napolitano, for revealing in his book that there's something about our government that continues to grind away at our liberties? Did he ever give credit that the liberties we have embodied in our Constitution are Protestant liberties? No, he didn't. Did he ever disclose that power that keeps grinding away at our Protestant liberties is the papacy itself? Has Andrew P. Napolitano renounced his Catholicity? Has he exposed the Pope of Rome as the biblical Antichrist? Do you think he ever would? You might buy his book and read it and learn from it, but don't be deceived by Andrew P. Napolitano or anybody who shows his face on Rupert Murdoch's Fox News. I call it the other Catholic channel, the other EWTN. It is Jesuit-controlled mind manipulation. It's probably the worst network on the air that you can watch. They're all controlled by the Jesuits, but I notice lately they're openly discussing Catholicism as Christianity on Rupert Murdoch's Fox News. And be forewarned, Fox News cannot be trusted to get reliable information. They're going to cover up this New World Order until the jaws of that trap slap finally closed. And then they'll do whatever they can to cover it up. Fox News is an instrument of the Jesuit order. And so is Andrew P. Napolitano. Now, we're going to continue on page 352 of the book. If you're reading along, this is chapter 35. It's entitled Novus Ordo Seclorum, a Jesuit Masonic Enterprise. A Jesuit Masonic Enterprise. Now, whenever you hear the term Freemasonry, you need to train your brain to hear the word Jesuitism, because Freemasonry at the top serves the Jesuit general. It's just another name, a cover for the Jesuit order. And this chapter begins with a quote from H.G. Wells in his The New World Order, published in 1939. Here's the quote: "Countless people will hate the New World Order and will die protesting against it," unquote. That's the coming Inquisition that I'm talking about. H.G. Wells knew full well about this New World Order way back in 1939. And he wrote about it. And he knows what's coming to this country. Excuse me, he says, there are 9 curious Roman numerals on the back of the U.S. $1 bill near the foot of the Masonic pyramid. MDCCLXXVI. Equally curious is the Latin inscription Novus Ordo Seclorum, found on the banner beneath the pyramid and also on the back of the Great Seal of America. The inclusion of Novus Ordo Seclorum in the current design of the Great Seal was approved by Congress, get this, on the 20th of June, 1782, only 6 years after the formation of the Illuminati in 1776, and I will just add only 3 years after the suppression of the Jesuits in 1773. And in 1935, it was introduced to the obverse side of the dollar bill as well. The juxtaposition of this Latin inscription with the Roman numerals offers a hint at the deeper meaning of Novus Ordo Seclorum. Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is Latin for New Order of the Ages, is a phrase extracted from the fourth eclogue of the pagan Roman poet Virgil, which reads, and I won't try to read its Latin, I'd butcher it and you wouldn't recognize it, but it translates, quote, "The last time of prophecy has come to the Cumaean Sibyl. A brand new great order of the ages is born, for now the Virgin and the age of Saturn have returned. Now a new child has been sent from the heavens," unquote. That the Sibylline oracle was believed in by several of the founders and evidenced by the newspaper clippings of 1788 and 1789. Here's what they say. In July of 1788, the City Gazette of Charleston ran an article called The 10th Pillar, which announced the ratification of the Constitution. It announced the return of the golden age of Saturn. In the article, we can see 10 pillars of classical orders holding up a roof. On the roof is Fame trumpeting the announcement. Fame is Femme, or Pheme, E-M-E, Greek goddess of fame and report, daughter to earth goddess Gaia. Sound familiar? And it says at this point there are still 3 states that haven't ratified the Constitution, but 2/3 majority has been reached. It is now the time of proclamation of, as our Great Seal says in Latin, this new nation is a new order for the ages, unquote. That was actually written in a paper in the City Gazette of Charleston in 1788. And they tried to tell me that Freemasonry wasn't Illuminized. It certainly was. And it says the Sibylline prophecy apparently says that the last age would be the age of the sun god Apollo, and that there will occur a great year, a Magnus Annus, a great year, or more precisely, a Magnus Seclorum Ordo, which is divided into 10 segments, over the last of which Apollo reigns. Now, is that the division of the nations into 10 regions, as accomplished by the Club of Rome, the North American Union being Region 1? It certainly lies as a great possibility, doesn't it? And it says, could this have something to do with the kingdom mentioned in Daniel chapter 7, verse 24, and the beast power of Revelation chapter 17 and verses 12 and 13, and chapter 13, verse 15 through 18? On August 2nd, 1789, the Massachusetts Sentinel published an article titled Regent Saturnia Regna that heralded the return of the Saturnian age as the 11th pillar was raised under the Constitution. What is the connection between Novus Ordo Seclorum and the Saturnian age at the Roman characters MDCCLXXVI found on the back of the dollar bill and the Great Seal? Many Roman letters have numerical value and are still used today on watches and clocks, etc. In the Roman alphabet, M equals 1,000, D equals 500, C equals 100, L equals 50, X equals 10, V equals 5, and I equals 1. Thus, when the characters M, D, C, C, L, X, X, V, I are added up, we get 1776. Here's the calculation. M is 1,000, D is 500, C is 100, C is 100, L is 50, X is 10, X is 10, V is 5 and 1, and I is 1. The total is 1776. And as we read earlier, according to Des Griffin, the insignia, Novus Ordo Seclorum, was adopted by Adam Weishaupt at the time he founded the Order of the Illuminati on May 1st, 1776. It is that event that is memorialized by the Roman letters M, D, C, C, L, X, X, V, I at the base of the pyramid, and not the date of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, unquote. In other words, the date memorialized in the Great Seal, 1776, has nothing whatever to do with America. In 1776, there were no Articles of Confederation and there were no United States. In fact, America had not even won the war yet. So why does the Statue of Liberty standing majestically over New York Harbor have a tablet in her left hand with just these characters, July 4th, MDCCLXXVI? Why? And the Statue of Liberty is a goddess figure. It's paganism. It's idolatry. Its symbolism has nothing whatever to do with Christianity. Is it really Lady Liberty or is she Lady Slavery? What is liberty to Protestants is slavery to Satan, and what is liberty to Satan is slavery and death to God's people. He says Lady Liberty was a gift from the French Grand Orient Lodge of Freemasonry. What was so special about 1776 to those Freemasons? In his book, The Secrets of the Great Pyramid, Peter Tompkins makes a thunderous statement. Quote, the unfinished pyramid found on the back of the U.S. $1 bill says symbolically the accomplishment of which the United States government was dedicated from the day of its inception. Many of the founders of the U.S. government, Masons, and they received aid, listen to this, they received aid from a secret and august body existing in Europe, which helped them to establish the United States for a peculiar and particular purpose known only to the initiated few. Unquote. Who do you suppose that august body from Europe was? Any guesses? The Jesuit order. And how did the Jesuit order accomplish their aims? Through Freemasonry, of course. Seems rather plain to me. And the author writes, this is profound. What was the identity of this secret and august body in Europe that helped the Founding Fathers break with Great Britain? Protestant Great Britain. And what was the peculiar and particular purpose for which the United States of America was established? Quote, from the day of its inception. Was there shenanigans involved? If so, who was behind it? Let me tell you, I've had this discussion. I had part of this discussion yesterday with Bill Hughes after the broadcast. And it's beginning to appear to me that the United States was brought into rebellion against Protestant Great Britain for this grand design. That it's been slowly building steam for the Jesuits ever since, and now the United States, in fulfillment of Revelation 13, has become the image of Rome, and it is being used by Rome to bring the rest of the world to the feet of the Pope in this new Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order. This is inconceivable for a country that has forever called itself a Christian or a Protestant nation. How could Satan, through the Jesuits and Freemasonry and all the secret societies that we peacefully tolerated in this country, how could Satan have used this Protestant land to do Satan's bidding in the world and to fulfill Revelation chapter 13? It's inconceivable that God's people have been oblivious to this ever since the founding of the country. And I'm still, as I comprehend this, I'm beginning to do the math and put all this together. It makes me ill at my stomach. What judgment must lie ahead for this country? In God's eyes, how could he honor his own name? You're listening to the Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Have you seen the Left Behind movies? Have you read the Left Behind fictional book series? Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. Because they see the world stage shaping to fulfill what they have been led to believe is sound biblical interpretation, a Left Behind rapture scenario, this false view of prophecy is reinforced in the mind, not only of its adherents, but also includes those who have been merely exposed to the specific media. Is it possible that false prophecy can be fulfilled? The rapture theories have always been in dispute. Pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib disputes have risen up in exclusively evangelical circles of recent history, so that when true believers don't suddenly disappear, this element will easily go by the wayside when all see a new Jewish temple begin to be built. Will this be part of the great delusion that will come upon the whole earth? It seems that this great prophetic delusion has already overcome practically the entire American evangelical and Christian world. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. To learn more, visit crosstheborder.org. That's CROSS, crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Okay, welcome back to the second half of Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. If you enjoy Inquisition Update, please support Inquisition Update by supporting FirstAmendmentRadio.com. And we're going to continue reading and discussing this book, a profound book of revelation to the American people. And I ended by saying that it's becoming apparent that the Jesuits were responsible for the Revolutionary War to separate the colonies from Protestant Great Britain so that Roman Catholicism could flourish in this country without the repressions they experienced in Britain, that they could eventually, while maintaining livable relations with Protestants, use this country for Vatican purposes. And then when the time was right, when Catholicism grew to proper strength, could overthrow our government. And that's what we're seeing today. And we need to loose our hold, loose our loyalties to a country that is now serving the Vatican. I no longer have the patriotic fealty to this country that I once had. And it's only because of my study of the Scriptures, particularly Revelation chapter 13, and my study in history, and books like this one, Codeword Barbelon by P.D. Stuart. I have no loyalty to this country anymore because I know who controls it, and I can't be a part of it. I conscientiously, spiritually can no longer be a patriot to this country. My loyalty lies only with my Savior now. And if that makes me a traitor, then that's fine. I'll wear the name proudly. The author says this is profound. What was the identity of the secret and august body in Europe that helped the Founding Fathers break with Protestant Great Britain? And what was the peculiar and particular purpose for which the United States of America was established from the very day of its inception? Was there shenanigans involved? If so, who was behind it? It was the Jesuit order. Through their Freemasons during the colonial period, they even created our form of government, democracy. You know, we hear people like Eric John Phelps and others, the historians, the people that are doing the heavy lifting in trying to sort out the history and make sense of what has happened. They understand that the Jesuits are behind all this, but somehow make excuses that Freemasonry played no role during this period of time. And I find it more and more difficult to swallow. It appears to me that the Jesuits used Freemasonry during this period of time. And saying that Freemasonry at that period of time was not Illuminized, I find that incredulous. If they were not Illuminized, certainly they were being used unwittingly to do the Vatican's purpose in this country. And we're seeing the results of that today. It says the secret organization that fomented the movement of America's independence from Britain and which helped to establish the United States was the Masonic Illuminati of France. Anybody see a Benjamin Franklin involved here? And it says, for it could hardly be a coincidence that the American Revolutionary War from 1776 to 1783, the War of Independence, was declared on 4th of July, 1776, 2 months after the Illuminati was founded in May of 1776. The declared goal of the Illuminati was the overthrowing of all then established governments. Certainly there is more here than meets the eye. There is more here than meets the eye. Now, under the subtitle, Enter the Masons, Liberty, Equality, and Fraternity, P.D. Stuart writes, The Builders, a classic Masonic book, tells us quite unashamedly that one of the main ignition points of the American War of Independence from Great Britain, the Boston Tea Party, quote, was planned and executed by Masons disguised as Mohawk Indians. Why did the Freemasons want us separated from Protestant Great Britain? And who was it that the Carroll boys were corresponding with anonymously in Great Britain during the time of the Revolution, as we learned in The Ark and the Dove by J. Moss Ives? I believe that the Illuminized Freemasonry was operating on both sides of the conflict. It was the Freemasons who did the Boston Tea Party, and it was the Freemasons in Parliament who were fomenting these intolerable acts of Parliament to foster a rebellion. They manufactured the Revolutionary War. Now, we have to understand for what purpose. And this book is helping us. It says, speaking of the revolution, Eliot says cryptically, quote, the plans of the Sons of Liberty, alluding to the Masonic motto, liberty, equality, and fraternity. In other words, he's using clandestine terms to speak specifically about Freemasons, so let me just read it that way. The plans of the Freemasons were matured, unquote. Yet the majority of Americans have no understanding of the role of that Freemasonry played in the two great wars on American soil, the American War of Independence from Great Britain and the American Civil War. Well, certainly we know that Albert Pike, the American god of Freemasonry, was a Confederate general and an occultist, a Kabbalist, a diabolical individual, and he wrote the Bible for Freemasonry called Morals and Dogma, where he clearly says that Freemasonry is a religion and Lucifer is its god. This just has to be comprehended. And they built a 60-foot memorial statue of Albert Pike in Washington. I mean, why? If Albert Pike and Freemasonry weren't so powerful and so influential in the founding of our government and the fomentation of the Revolutionary War and the Civil Wars. It says the Masonic emblems are paraded before the American people every day and they don't even know it. Almost every symbol on the American dollar bill, the flag, and the United States Great Seal is of Masonic or Illuminati or Jesuitical origin. I will add the word Jesuitical. The headquarters of the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite Temple of Masons for the southern jurisdiction of Freemasonry in the United States is located on the east side of the Northwest 16th Street between R and S Streets in Washington, D.C. It says the White House, the home of the United States President, is centered on 16th Street, just 3 blocks from the headquarters of the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite. Proof, perhaps, that the center of power of this country lies in the bosom of Freemasonry. Now, why do these very streets of Washington, D.C. form a pentagram? And why does the White House sit on the base of this pentagram of Masonic architecture? Why do we find in the heart of Washington, D.C. a large statue honoring the founder of the Ku Klux Klan, Confederate general and illuminated Freemason, and the god of Freemasonry in the United States, Albert Pike? The immense 6-foot-plus bearded figure of Albert Pike, the Supreme Pontiff, that is the Pope of Freemasonry, towers over a public square in the nation's capital. The fact that it has never been pulled down is a constant testimony to the influence and power of Freemasonry in the nation's history and its capital. This organization has power in the executive branch of government, in Congress. It's a major force in the courts of this land, in the various branches of law enforcement, and in the military. Freemasonry is everywhere. There's something we have to acknowledge about Freemasonry. And God's people cannot be Freemasons. They bring a curse upon God's house. You can't serve two masters. You can't quote Jesus with your lips and serve Lucifer with your hands and your feet. Every spirit-born Christian has to renounce Freemasonry and expose it for what it is. You have a moral and spiritual obligation to your Christ and His people in this country to help stop this coming Inquisition by telling the truth about Freemasonry. You've sworn her oaths. You've partaken in her sins, and you will receive of her plagues. Repent of Freemasonry. Expose it for what it really is. It's not a charity. It uses charity to cover up its diabolic influence in this country. Freemasonry can't be tolerated in this country if we hope it to survive. If we want freedom and justice to prevail in this country, Freemasonry's got to go. The fact that that statue of Albert Pike has never been pulled down is a constant testimony to the influence and power of Freemasonry in this nation's history and in its capital. This organization, this diabolical, Luciferian, oath-swearing, Jesuit-serving organization has power in the executive branch. That's the White House. In Congress is a major force in the courts. That's our judges and our lawyers, our Freemasons. Everybody knows it. And in various branches of law enforcement, there are police officers. They're the ones who are supposed to preserve, defend, and protect the American people. How much would you trust a Jesuit to protect God's people in this country? How much? They're the ones who are going to be leading this Inquisition. And their Freemasons are going to dutifully serve their black master in Rome. And they even are a powerful force in the military. I knew a deck slammer, an aircraft carrier pilot, who confessed to me that the top dogs in the Navy are all Freemasons. It says Jeffrey Meyer writes how the Founding Fathers viewed their enterprise when setting up the United States of America. Quote, the Founding Fathers frequently expressed and enacted in rituals such as the Masonic rite of laying the cornerstone of the Capitol. Washington, Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and others believed that the deity was actively interested in the success of the American experiment, calling it a novus ordo seclorum, a new order in the world. Nothing like it had been seen before. There were brief classical foreshadowings in the Republican Rome. It's made in the image of the beast. It's made in the image of the beast. And Freemasonry is responsible. It says, the Library of Congress has an online exhibit on the construction of the Capitol building entitled The Temple of Liberty. That's right, they call it a temple. That's a religious institution. That's what I've been saying all along. This is all about religion. This is all about who we're going to serve. It's about who we're going to obey. It's about who we're going to worship. It isn't about a form of government. It's about proclaiming Lucifer, the god of this world. It's a temple, just like every Masonic temple. It says the article states that Thomas Jefferson got his inspiration for temple-like architecture of the Capitol building from the Pantheon in Rome. It's made in the image of the Pantheon in Rome. It goes on to say that, quote, a print in Robert Wood's 1753 book, The Ruins of Palmyra, impressed Jefferson for the Capitol's new East Portico design. The print was Wood's conception of the Temple of the Sun. The Temple of the Sun, which is the Temple of Bel, known also as Baal, who we know from Scripture was the sun god and father in the Trinity of the sun god, it says, unquote. The importance of this sun god Baal will be revealed later in the book. It says in the Mithraic mysteries, the sun god was called Saturn, and his worship was the foundation of the solar temple, whose feast day was the festival of Sol Invictus, December 13th through the 25th. We now call it Christmas, it's not Christianity. Christmas has absolutely nothing to do with Christ. And it says Saturn means the hidden one. Saturn, or Sanat Chimera, was also the name given to the pagan worship of the Babylonian ruler Nimrod, who was known as the god of the Chaldean mysteries, or the star of the sun. Remember, it was Nimrod who, it is said that when he died, his spirit lived on. That's the immortality of the soul. It's all a lie. God's book says, when you die, you return to the dust of the ground, for dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. But no, Nimrod is said to have lived on, and then his soul transmigrated into the sun, and he became the sun god. We know him in the Bible as Bel or Baal. And it was this sun god that the Israelites worshipped in Ezekiel chapter 8. And this is what led to their Babylonian captivity. They worshiped the Babylonian god Baal by worshiping the rising sun, and you can darn well bet they did it on the Sol Invictus during the December months, and you can bet they did it on the Sunday, the first day of the week. And we call it Christianity today. And nobody seems to comprehend why God would be offended. It says in Alice Bailey's book, Esoteric Astrology, states that Saturn is the lord of karma, and that Venus and Saturn shall rule men during Aquarius. Quote, "We stand at the gateway of the new world," wrote Bailey. What did God say about astrology? Are God's people to have anything to do with astrology? Are our destinies determined by the stars, or are they determined by our God and Creator? Do you know what an insult and an injustice it is when a professing Christian looks up his horoscope? Did you know that you celebrate your birthday every year because of its astrological significance to your destiny? Do you realize that even a celebration of your birthday is wholly rooted in paganism and astrology? And were it not for the pagan influence in Christianity today, nobody would celebrate their birthday. According to the Bible, the day of one's birth is a day to be lamented. And yet, the most pious, Bible-believing Christians celebrate their birthdays. There's no incident in the Bible of a godly, biblical character that celebrates his birthday. Not one instance in all the Bible. Do you suppose maybe God's people aren't supposed to celebrate their birthday? The birthday only has significance in the context of astrology, that which God most abhors and forbid his people to practice. It says, Venus, the consort of Saturn, is called the Virgin, and was the goddess worshipped by the Romans as the Queen of Heaven. Likewise, the Babylonians in their popular religion supremely worshipped a goddess mother and a son, who was represented in pictures and in images and as an infant or child in his mother's arms. From Babylon, this worship of the mother and child spread to the ends of the earth, wrote Alexander Hislop in his work, The Two Babylons. We call it Christianity today, particularly Catholicism. But you watch, it'll spread into the Protestant churches too. The harlot daughters are going to pick up all the characteristics of their whorish Romish mother. And this is proven. My own sister testifies that without her understanding what was really going on. Her pastor was teaching her about 40 days of Lent. That's 40 days of lamentation and weeping for the sun god, or the son of the sun god, Tammuz. Read about it in Ezekiel chapter 8. That's right. They're being Catholicized right there in their Protestant churches, and they don't have a clue what's going on. And not only that, their pastor was teaching them that the bread of the communion was the Eucharist. And there's only one definition for the Eucharist. The Eucharist is another sacrifice. It is the literal blood, body, soul, and divinity of Christ to be sacrificed over and over and over again as a perpetual sacrifice, completely in rejection of the teaching of the Bible. It is strictly Catholicism. It is wholly pagan. It is an abomination before the Lord. And they're preaching it in the mainstream Pentecostal churches. And had it not been for my sister listening to Inquisition Update, unbeknownst to me, she would to this day never know what she was being taught in her Pentecostal church. And I predicted this years ago. This ecumenical movement is going to make Catholics out of Protestants. They're going to do it so slowly and so gradually as to not raise up any Protestant protest. And that's precisely what's taking place. And if you're in an ecumenical church, you've got to get out. You can't have any of this Babylonianism on you. The Lord is coming for a chaste people. It says this virgin goddess is today represented by the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. Lady Liberty holding up a lighted torch. The statue was a gift from the French Masonic Grand Orient Lodge to the Masonic founding fathers of this country. It is, in fact, the goddess Minerva, the deity of the new order of the ages, the Novus Ordo Seclorum. As Freud once noted, imagine quoting Freud, Sigmund Freud, a diabolical individual. He said, the monuments and memorials with which cities are adorned are also mnemonic symbols, unquote. So we must regard it as significant that the Masonic founding fathers chose as their mnemonic symbol the pagan virgin daughter of Babylon, the goddess mother, the queen of heaven, Venus, Isis, also called the Virgin Mary in the Roman Catholic Church, the consort of Saturn, the sun god, the latter of whom Dr. Kathy Burns writes, quote, is really another name for Satan. This is staggering. Now does Revelation chapter 13 make a little more sense to you? Again, I want to thank P.D. Stuart for having the spiritual fortitude to write this book. And I thank God for the opportunity here on Inquisition Update to read it to those who will hear it. We'll talk about it more on the program tomorrow. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.